Hi, my name is Kalista Nugent, and I'm from Stonewall, Manitoba, and I am a second-year student here at St. Therese Institute. I will be reflecting on this Sunday's Gospel, which is John chapter 10, verses 11 through 18, where Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd. The sheep is typically interpreted to symbolize the church, the believers of Christ. In biblical times, the shepherd was wholly responsible for the sheep. If something were to happen to any of the sheep, the shepherd would have to produce evidence that it was not his fault. He would bring home the evidence and show that he was unable to prevent the death of the animal. Otherwise, he would have to pay the price of the sheep. This is the degree to which the shepherd is responsible for his sheep. This shows us how carefully Jesus watches over us, going against the mindset that many of us may subconsciously share, that God is distant, far off, that he doesn't care personally about each one of us. When in reality, this passage shows us how intimately he cares for us, declaring that he would even lay down his life for his sheep, freely, not because he was forced to or out of fear, but of his own accord. Jesus is the Good Shepherd, a real shepherd, unlike the hirelings. Shepherds were normally born to the task, sent out to tend to their father's sheep as soon as they were old enough, whereas the hired hands only used it as a means to an end, a means to make money. The shepherd would grow up and learn to naturally think of the sheep's lives before their own. We should think of those we serve before ourselves like the shepherds. In the words of Catherine Doherty, I am third. Do we tend the sheep or the poor in our lives just as a means to an end, just so that we can gain something, or are we doing it freely and selflessly? We are meant to help the poor in our lives in the way that Christ did, following his example. We should be willing to lay down our lives for the sake of the other, to not run away when we see the wolves drawing near, the wolves that scatter and cause confusion. The Christian faith is radical. We are not promised an easy life. We are meant to follow in the footsteps of Christ, who faced many trials. Pope Francis said during a homily in 2013 that priests are called to take on the odor of the sheep. We are each called, in our own way, to take on the smell of the sheep, to go out into the world and live our vocation, whatever it may be, and to work closely with others. This is the task we have been given by God. And so now I invite you to put yourself in the place of the other characters in this passage. When is it in our own lives that we act like the wolf, refusing to rejoice with others, stealing their joy, hurting or manipulating relationships, and thus creating division and scattering God's people? When is it in our lives that we act like the hireling, fleeing or taking a step back from relationships as soon as there is the first sign of trouble, those times that we are a false shepherd to others? How can we be like Christ, the Good Shepherd, in our present circumstances, loving and caring tenderly for others, giving up our lives for the sake of another?
Like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube and on all major podcasting platforms.